Imagine a world where you knew that you mattered and you belonged. The people cared about you because we were so darn good at listening to one another, no matter how different we are. That is what Sidewalk Talk is doing by putting listeners on sidewalks all over the world so that we can practice the art of connecting. Join me, founder and director Traci Rubel, as I interview experts on the fine art of human connection and interview some of our volunteers who've been listening on the sidewalk and even some of the folks that we've listened to. And if you want to volunteer, consider joining us at sidewalk-talk.org. I don't know if you all know this, but I have a real appreciation for art because my dad's a painter. So art was something that he brought into the home when my mom married him at 4. When I was 4. So I can sometimes walk into a modern art museum and feel like I want to lick the walls because the paintings get me so excited. And Daren Todd's work got me super excited. I think I wanted to start licking my phone. He's a Portland-based artist, muralist, and designer. He uses his mediums to connect with the community around him. Aside from running a fine art business called Art Larger Than Me, Daren also curates work for a new gallery in downtown Portland that's called the Downstairs Gallery, with a focus on supporting Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ+, and disabled artists in their work. So he is a fierce justice advocate. Daren also serves as president of a nonprofit artist organization called the Neighborhood Arts Collective, and together with a group of artists seeks to create art based on the lives of other community members and creatives. Sound familiar? I mean, the values between what we're doing at Sidewalk Talk and what Daren's doing are so in alignment. Aside from all the art, Daren also collaborates with a group of musicians as part of the It's Future Time, a Portland-based indie record label specializing in jazz-based hip-hop and creating music for commercial and sync licensing. You're going to hear the entire evolution of an artist, and what I really dig about Daren is I think Daren was a born artist. I think there are just some people that come out of the hopper and you can't get them to stop doing art. And we had a conversation about what it means to be loving. And Daren wanted to make sure, he says, I think I might have said loving and I didn't say the accountability piece. And it's really important to me, Traci, that you make sure that I stand for loving people, but holding people accountable. And we had this conversation right after the insurrection of the U.S. Capitol building. So thank you, Daren, for making sure that I put that back in. What a light. What a light. I can't wait for you to meet Daren Todd.
Daren Todd, in our just lead up to you and I starting to dialogue, I said, I'm so excited to finish my day talking to an artist because I have something comes alive in me when I talk to artists because I feel like you're helping us see things and hear things that we can't see without your lens. So thank you for being here. And tell us, all the listeners, about Daren Todd and how you got started making art, because it's not a traditional path.
Yeah. Not only is it not a traditional path, but I didn't come to it in a traditional way. I actually, like, if you asked me a year ago, I would have told you I was a musician. I grew up in church and was always surrounded by music. My mom was like, the praise and worship team leader, and my dad was the soundboard guy. And I used to say, I was just born next to a speaker. And I started playing violin in middle school, was classically trained and got pretty good, and then did choir and learned how to sing and picked up other little instruments along the way, guitar and piano and bass and a drum set, and just enough so that I could figure out how to write songs for myself, and then really fell in love with songwriting. And when I transitioned, I kind of lost the use of my voice for a while. And so I started rapping because it was like, well, if I can't sing, I can talk. And all of that kind of came together in 2017. I was living in my hometown in Santa Barbara, and there's not really a big music scene there, but I was trying to make it work. And I opened for musicians that were on tour from Portland down to California. And one of the musicians was like, you're a really talented guy. There wasn't anybody in the audience tonight, but you still went up there and did your thing as if, it was a packed house. And we really respect that. He said, I want you to come up to Portland for a week or two and, stay with me. And I'm starting this record label called It's Future Time. And, we can put music together and it'll be a thing. And something about him, but also the name It's Future Time really struck a chord with me. I just couldn't say no. So it was on my heart and on my mind all summer. And then by June, I just decided, I'm going to go to Portland. And at the time I was married, super young, and I left behind, my wife and my friends and my serving job, and just was like, I got to do this. I have to do this. And um, came up here, and 1 week turned to 1 month, turned to 3 months, turned to a year. And I've never went back. I just moved up here and stayed up here. And a lot of things changed during those first 3 years of being here in Portland. I ended up going through a divorce, and making a whole new set of friends, and just learning a lot about myself and who I was and who I wanted to become in this version of America. And I put all that into my music. And I was so supported by the record label and the people that I met and the community here in Portland, that even though I didn't make, and I didn't make that much money, probably, under $1,000 in those 3 years, it really never was about the money. It was always about, wow, look at all the people that we're connecting with. Look at all the people that will come to our shows. Look at all the lives that I'm able to change by just saying, yeah, I had a dream and I followed it, and you can do the same thing too. And so that kind of became like my rallying cry. It kind of always was, follow your dream, but it was solidified by following my dream, and it somewhat working out for me. And so I was in that course and doing those things and just producing music and teaching myself as much as I could learn about um, graphic design, because we wanted to like design our own album covers, and teaching myself about playing instruments and producing and things. And then in March 2020, I lost my bartending job due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I had always said to people at my job, even, I hate doing this. I love connecting with people over the bar, but I don't want to have a boss, and I don't want to be a part of this capitalistic machine that just works you until you can't, feel your knees, or till you can feel your knees rubbing together and your hips cracking. And, it just never fulfilled me. And so I would tell people, I'm not going to be a bartender by the end of this year. And I said that in April, and in March, sure enough, got laid off and was no longer a bartender. And I just took that opportunity to really delve into art. I had always kind of drawn and kind of doodled and kind of designed things, but I took time every day to really put myself into painting. I just had always been intimidated by how many colors there were and couldn't figure out what to do with line and structure. And one day I just said, I'm going to figure it out. And so I started working on it. Every day I'd put an hour or 2 or 3 into it. And out of that, by like March, April, May, June, July, by July, I decided, you know what? I can make this into a business. I had put some paintings on Etsy and they had sold. And then I started selling prints on Etsy and they were selling. And then what really happened was I was on Reddit, which is like an online kind of forum based website. It's pretty big, but then again, a lot of people don't know what it is. And they have one feature where you can live stream. So I was looking on there one day and I saw this dude painting, and I looked at his painting and I was just like, I think I could probably paint something that's at least as good as that. And he had a bunch of people watching him. So I thought, that's a good outreach. Hopped on there the same day. I taped my phone to a broomstick, kid you not, and started streaming from my phone. Taped the piece of paper to the wall. I had nothing. I just had a couple paints and a couple paintbrushes, and played some of my favorite music in the background and turned it on. And it went from like 7 people watching to 70 people watching to 700 people watching to like 7,000 people watching me paint the first time. And it was like, okay, this is it. And I couldn't stop. I started doing it every day, or
Come paint on the Sidewalk Talk Instagram account. God, that sounds so relaxing to just be in creative process with an artisan. Amazing.
I think that's what people say. They're like, this is relaxing, and we love seeing how you're building these things up. And they get to ask me questions about my process. And I've been told I'm a pretty positive and upbeat guy. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. It's like, maybe it's fun to interact with me. And so I just kept it going. I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. for 3 or 4 months and really built a following. I would send people to my Instagram and send people to my Etsy shop. And I eventually took my Etsy shop and made it into my website. And it was enough to, like, the money that I was getting from streaming and from the commission requests from that was starting to pay my rent. And so I was like, I have to make this into a business. And so I launched Art Larger Than Me. And I thought, my goal, I'm 5'2", so I'm pretty short. So my goal is to just make big art. But also I thought larger than me, like bigger than me, like not about me, but about, reaching out. And so that name kind of resonated with me and I stuck with it. And that was really the start of this, career as an artist that I had. It's only started since last July. I've only been painting since last year, which is crazy to think about. And from there,
this is kind of why I love your story, because I feel like there is a purity to there can be a kind of elitism in the art industry. It's something I've talked to my dad about. Mm-hmm. He didn't finish his MFA. He went for it and didn't finish the final classes. I think it was a protest to something, but there's a purity to self-expression, the way you're doing it, that I felt really drawn to. So I love that you're new at it. And I love that you are making art larger than me. And I kind of am grooving on the metaphor too, because it's larger than just you personally. Because in your story, I keep hearing you talk about connection. And so it's larger than your ego. I hear you saying, I'm making art larger in size than me, but I'm also making art for everyone, for the community. And some of the paintings are topics that are for everyone.
I think so. And I try to emphasize that for me, everyone might not look like what it looks like for everyone else. Like, I'm a Black man, I'm a trans man, and I feel like I'm right in this intersection of hyper marginalized people that often get forgotten and don't see versions of themselves in creative works, even today. So when I say everyone, I'm really talking about, us. And it has been resonating with people. And I agree. It's super organic and it's super, like, I'm not trying to be, that elitist art. I never went to art school. I never went to college. I just went straight into the workforce. So I'm trying to go back and educate myself now on the art that has come before me. But I am so thankful for the perspective that I have on it. Because, like, I feel like art students, when they're forced to read about, Cezanne and Monet and Manet and things like that, they're kind of like eye rolling, like everybody knows this. But for me, reading about that now, it's like, it's a revelation. I have such an appreciation for it that I'm glad I didn't, I'm almost glad I didn't go to art school because I see so many people that have gone that are just so jaded and broken down and beaten down by that system. And again, I am like, although I exist in a capitalist society, I don't prescribe to any of the tenets of capitalism, and I don't believe in it. I don't think that we need to be doing things solely for the profit. In fact, I don't think we need to be doing things for the profit at all. And so anything that I can do to get outside of that system, it just resonates with me on a deeper level. It makes this all easy to wake up in the morning and do, because it's like, it's who I would be and what I would be doing regardless. Just happens to be painting that happens to work.
Yeah. You're Daren for the dream. I'm sorry I made the connection when you said dreams and Daren.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just be clear with our audience. So what marginalized communities do you represent, Daren?
Well, I'm Black. I'm African American, like 4th, 5th generation in this country. And I have some Cherokee Indian or Cherokee Native American blood running through my dad's side of my family. And I also, I'm transgender. And so I identify with the LGBTQ community. I just consider myself queer. And so it's those two intersections where I find myself in the middle of.
What about your art do you hope serves either the communities that you identify with, or that intersection between the communities that you identify with and the communities that might be marginalizing them?
I recognize that I have been gifted with a palpable voice and personality type. Most of the people that I meet like me or are down with me, most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. And so I try to use that gift that I've been given to reach out to people that maybe haven't been reached or aren't being reached, and to speak for people that haven't found a way to speak or have been silenced. Kind of try to think of myself as like a secret agent, because I pass and I recognize that a lot of transgender people don't pass and maybe never will pass. And so I feel like it's my responsibility to use the gifts that I have to be a voice for those people that have no voice or whose voices have been taken away.
So how do you think art helps us as a humanity make space for more people to connect across our differences? How is it creating that inside of you? I mean, art is such a different language, right?
Yeah, it is a different language, but I think there's theories that it's the early language, like the earliest one. Like I believe before we were gesticulating sounds with our mouths, we were painting on cave walls, and it's also one of the first languages that, as humans, we learn. If you give a toddler a paintbrush, they can make some art. They may not be able to really even walk yet, but they can make some art. And so I think that it just comes as an intuitive part of being a human. And there's nothing like that revelation that you get when you see a piece of art that resonates with you. Francis Bacon said that artists, when they're painting, it is an extension of their nervous system coming out on the canvas. And I believe that. If you look at my work, it's relaxed. I use muted colors. And yeah, there's a vibrancy and a movement to it, but it's organic. And these are organic shapes that you'd find in everyday life. And that really speaks to who I am and what I'm about. Whereas, if you're looking at, say, Tracy Amon's art, for example, I think it definitely speaks to who she is as a person. And so I believe that art is a language that transcends dialects and can say a lot, and it's open to interpretation by every person, because no two people see the same. Even one person sees two different things from two of their eyes. And so it's our brains that puts these things together based on the synapses and past um, experiences. And I think that what's important about art is that while it's open for interpretation, it's impossible to deny the meanings that are there when it's created with intention. And so what I do is, yeah, I might just be painting a portrait and it might just have a background, but as I'm creating it, I'm constantly meditating on the intention behind this piece and what I want it to
Mm.
say and invoke in people who are looking at it. And so far, I feel really grateful that my art has been able to speak to people, and it has brought people together from all different walks of life and all different understandings of why we're here. I don't know why we're here. Nobody does. But I think it's a question that, we all wonder and we all think about. And art is one of those few answers that we have.
Yeah, and there's something, and I'm kind of connecting what you said previously about capitalism.
Hmm.
And there's something that I hear is kind of liberating when you don't have to paint so that this art is marketable. You get to paint from intention. And so you're unencumbered by the marketplace. You really get to put soul into your art. And so I'm curious, it leads me to a question. You talked about the intention and impact that you want the art to have on others. What has been the impact on you? I mean, you've moved from music playing. What have you noticed different about your nervous system, for example? Or just you as a person now that you're painting rather than just music?
Yeah, I think, music was always a part of my life, but it was always kind of a frustrating form of expression for me because it's not solitary. I mean, there are musicians and artists that are able to, take an idea from in their mind and, produce the entire thing and mix it and master it and release it. But those are really few and far between. And frankly, even they have help along the way. And while, it's great, I believe in connection, I also really value the ability that art has given me to not answer to anyone like beyond the market. It's really also like there's no one here saying, oh, no, 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 don't draw that circle, or no, 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 don't draw that square. I get to make the mistakes that I make and then learn from them on my own time. And I'm incredibly action oriented, to my detriment or to my success. And so for me, being able to quickly learn these lessons, it is fulfilling. I think about it every day when I wake up. I think about it every night when I go to sleep. It's even more of an obsession than music was, and music was a high level obsession for me. It'll always be there. I'm still on that record label, and we actually have two of my projects that I had made in the past years coming out this year as demo tapes. But art, it just seems like a faster zip line through that same connective tunnel for me. Um, I have definitely felt like I have found my calling in what I've been doing. And it is like it's a feeling that I would never ever give up willingly. To just know that when I wake up, I know what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be doing it. Even if I don't know what to paint, I know that, oh, I believe that it's not really about the outcome so much as it is about the daily practice. And when you focus on the practice, the outcome comes secondary because it's like you're not in it for what comes out. You're in it for what you put in.
I'm having a little grin over here as I'm listening to you because I feel a little bit of that kindred spirit, birds of a feather thing going on.
Awesome.
You and I, it sounds like, both are doers, maybe do before think.
Yeah,
even.
yeah. I'm working on it. My partner tells me just once a day on one decision a day. Why don't you practice thinking about it for like longer than, 10 minutes?
I'll give my husband's phone number to your partner and they can have a conversation and keep us accountable to that because that would be hilarious. Yeah. The other thing I'm hearing in you, Daren, you are a little bit rebellious with authority.
A little bit is an understatement.
Tell me more, because I can so jam with that, and it's so I'm like grinning from ear to ear. So can you tell me?
I just have always really I hate being told what to do, and I don't know what it. I don't know. I mean, I'm a Taurus, so stubbornness is like top of that sign, but also I just don't. I just feel like I just don't want. Even if they're right, I'll eventually come around and be like, yeah, you're right. But I just don't like being told what to do. So it goes back to like being young and getting my first apartment. And my mom was like worried that in my first apartment, I wouldn't get my deposit back because I will have painted on all the walls. And she was 100% correct. I definitely did paint on all the walls and definitely did not get my deposit back. And I've had probably like 16 different jobs, not because I'm a bad worker and not even because I would, do anything egregious. It just, I can give you like 9 months to 12 months. And then I've figured out the system and it's repetitive and I just don't want to do it. So
you're a real artist.
Yeah. To my, like I said, to my detriment or to my success, I can't get away from it. I actually do so much better on any project if I have someone just be like, okay, this is the goal. These are the tools. I'll see you in a couple days. Now, whether or not it will be the way they wanted it done, probably not. And it might not always be the most efficient way, especially if it's my first time. But I can learn and I can be taught and I can pick it up. And it's not like I'm insolent. I just don't really like being told what to do. I really value figuring things out and doing things with my hands. And sometimes I do take the slow way around. Um, you know what? I'm about to be 30 this year. And one thing that I do know that I have learned maybe with age is like, okay, I can at least like figure out who to ask that's been there before I just jump into something that I don't know what I'm doing. So I've learned to value experience from other people that I respect and kind of ask for advice before I just kind of like dive in. But even that's like 50-50. Sometimes I'll just dive in. I'm still working on that.
I'm turning off my therapist brain now, not analyzing this. And my inner rebel is just grabbing your hand, and we're like having a party in the park together. So this is great. I do have to ask you, I got to take this in a detour because we have another little thing in common. I lived in Santa Barbara. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I waited tables. I paid my way through college and waited tables the whole time. So where did you work, Daren?
I worked at a little restaurant out in Los Olivos called Sides Hardware and Shoes. Yeah, and then I worked at the casino, Chumash Casino, and where else? I don't know if I ever worked in Santa Barbara proper.
So I don't even know if the restaurant I worked at is even still there, but I worked at the divey burger joint called State and A on State and Anaheim.
Maybe not. Maybe it's gone.
I'm sure it's gone. And then I worked at, which is still there, the Summerlin Beach Cafe, which is the Victorian house with the wraparound decks.
Yeah, I love that spot. That's crazy. Yeah. It's a small world.
Too funny, right?
Yeah, I tell people I'm from Santa Barbara and like everyone knows where that is. And a lot of people have been there or, oh, it's beautiful there. It is beautiful there. It's just unless you're well-to-do, then you're definitely struggling down there.
Yeah. It's not like there's a lot. You have to kind of be in the tourist industry. It's kind of the only thing.
Yeah, or have a practice, be a doctor or something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'm wanting to understand. I guess I can't deny, and when this episode airs, the political climate will be different. But the first thing that happened for me after last week's insurrection and terrorist attack on the Capitol was I called every one of my Black friends and said, please stay home. How is this impacting you and your sense of safety, considering, I mean, I get that you're passing in terms of your gender identity, but I also, you're completely conspicuous because you're a Black man.
Yeah. I live in Portland, Oregon, and so
you've got all the moms out there that'll have your back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I stay within the city proper, it's pretty rare that I encounter any violence based on my skin color. I'm not out at night, late at night, though. I mean, I'm like, let's not tempt anyone. But I think more than my sense of safety was just this overwhelming anger at the double standard of this country that we all know and that we all understand, but it has never been demonstrated more clearly than it was demonstrated that day. And it was my immediate thought, and it's the immediate thought of everyone of color and plenty of white people too that I've heard. And it's just, it feels like shouting into an echo chamber. Like we've been saying this for years, for decades, for generations, that it is not equal and it is not fair. And it just makes you wonder, like, is it ever going to change? Is it ever going to improve? Like, I get so frustrated. And one of the reasons why I chose to do a series of portraits of James Baldwin was for the quote that he has later in life, where he says, I'm 60 years now, and I'm not going to live another 60 years. And you've always told me, it takes time, but it's taken my father's time and my mother's time, my brother's time, my sister's time, and my cousin's time. How much more time do you want for your progress? He said. That quote it sits with me. At this point, I've memorized it because it's literally so deep in the fiber of my muscles. Like, how much more time are we going to have to wait for a simple right to life, to freedom, to justice, to the pursuit of our happiness? And we're not asking to be held above we're literally just asking to be equal.
Mhm.
It infuriates me. And so, yeah, seeing that and watching that happen, yeah, there was a part of me that was like, burn it down, which, that's not constructive. But there was another part of me that was just like, this is not fair. And I don't know what it's going to take for it to be fair.
Yeah. I'm curious if you've made any art since last week, and if so, what's been the tenor of the outpouring of your nervous system onto the canvas?
I have been making art. I have quite a few commissions that I got at the start of the year that I've been working through. And I personally, it takes me a little bit of time to ingest what's happening in the world around me and for it
Mm-hmm.
to come back out in art. I'm not a quick responder, especially on a political level, because I don't want to make something that I will look back on and go like, oh, that's not actually true to how I feel now.
Mm.
So I try to give myself a little bit of time to react. But I've been painting Baldwin. I'm looking at 2 portraits of him, and I did a mural of him. And there's one commission that I did where it's kind of like longer than it's longer than it is tall, and it's kind of dollar bill shaped. And
Mm-hmm.
he's right in the center, and he's monotone and blue. And it came to me, I was like, oh, this is like the new $1 bill. Like this is what
Mm.
in our society that we would create if we could create it. This is what a dollar bill would look like. So I'm always a positive person, even though the world can be dark, and I don't try to just stay like positive, air quotes, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I'm always like, well, what's going forward? What's future? Like, let me be a part of painting the new world that we build after we tear this one down.
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
funny. Before we just got online together, I told you I had a session with a client, but then before that, I do a live show on Facebook with 2 women of color who we call it the Naked Three, and we just get naked. And our talk tonight was about accountability,
Mm-hmm.
and we closed the conversation with the question: what kind of accountability would you like to see? And this will come around to art, so just bear with me for a second. It'll involve you, maybe. Uh, and Larice said, she told a story. She said there was there was a Black family in a suburban white neighborhood who had put up a Black Santa Claus in their front yard. And one of the neighbors complained to the housing association. What every other member of the community did, rather than approaching that Black family and saying, you need to take down your Black Santa, is they all went out and bought Black Santas and put them in their front yard in solidarity. And she said, I want to see white folks doing something like that right now. That would be a really beautiful kind of accountability. And so we were just daydreaming along the lines of your James Baldwin on the dollar bill. She said it would be so cool if there was an emblem that represented not the kind of unity that says no accountability,
Right.
but an emblem that says people matter, not just Black Lives Matter though. Like there's been a lot of groups that have been harmed and marginalized. There's a lot of people that want to say this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And she said, and I want us to stand and protest whether we put the signs in our windows. We need an emblem to say lies aren't okay, bullying's not okay, racism is not okay.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering isn't, all the things that emblem
Yeah.
will stand for. And I just thought, oh, that's genius. She said, yeah, we need a Black Santa. And I just thought, yeah, maybe it's just a Black Santa.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. I mean,
Can you
that would be
imagine?
dope. What's funny is I can imagine, because my mom, first of all, my mom was like, ain't no Santa. I'm buying these presents. You're going to be, you're going to be grateful to your parents who have slaved away all year to get you these things. Forget it, Santa. But, we had Black Jesus, and we had all Black everything always. So for me, it's like, it's not a thing. And I would be so shocked to hear that someone doesn't like my Black Santa. It's like, too bad. Um, I'm super not, I don't, I like, I'm super not very good at like accommodating people that don't understand. You know what I mean? Like that don't get it or that aren't trying to open their minds. It's kind of like it's not that hard to understand. Everybody wants to be represented and see themselves in the things that they, create and consume. Uh yeah, I'm just constantly dumbfounded by racists and racism, and it seeps into every part of society in these little ways, even into myself, where I have to go and be like, oh, like, why do I think that way? Oh, I think that way because that's how America is, and I need to, think a different way. But yeah, I think I agree. We need many emblems, we need many
Mm,
signs, and we need constant reminders. It needs to not be taboo to tell someone that they're being racist. It needs to not be like this big, like, don't say that. Like, because the bottom line is you can't exist in America today as a white person and not have implicit biases. You
mhm,
just can't. The
mhm,
system, be it capitalism or the government, they're all built on racist ideologies and imperialistic ideologies and
mhm,
xenophobic ideologies that need to change and
mhm,
that are going to change because there are people like me who are going to devote their lives to changing them. Um,
mhm,
it's just a matter of when, I want to hope that within my lifetime I can see a different world, but I also don't want to be naive, I want to try to stay realistic. So, yeah, it's a struggle, and it's also really hard to not disengage.
mhm,
Sometimes my go-to is to just like, well, it makes me so angry that I just can't even look at it, and I have to like learn how to sit in that anger and how to let something constructive come out of that anger versus avoidance, because you're not going to get anywhere by avoiding things that make you uncomfortable. It's a practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just launched a new listener training, which is all about the inner cultivation that people need to develop
Hmm.
in order to listen to another human. And we really tackle not just implicit bias, but and not just racial bias, but also cultural bias as well,
Yeah,
and some of
it's
the cultural
big.
lenses that we have, and not from a shaming way, just to say if we can just normalize this, then it's
Right.
no big deal for you to own it because you don't have to feel a
Right.
bunch of shame about it. It's just like, oh yeah, this is how the brain works. It's shorthand.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I agree with that. I think shame is the operative word in a lot of this, where, and I don't know if that's like a Catholic shame that has just come from imperialism. I would have to guess, but it's like it's just so embedded into our society to like shame yourself for making a mistake and shame people around you for making you uncomfortable, or all of that. And I think the second that we take shame out of the equation on any of these hard subjects and we just look at it for what it is like a second that we can get somewhere and we can progress. Like, I never want to shame someone for where they were. I just want them to come to a better place.
That sounds like a beautiful way to hold people accountable. What I hear you saying is that you hold people accountable for their growth, not
Yeah.
for their past.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you only have the tools that you're given. And, nobody asked to be born, literally
Mm-hmm.
nobody. So it's just like, yeah, you can only start where you start. And I have my shortcomings, and we're human, even
Yeah.
furthermore, like we're all human, we're imperfect. So, yeah, but I think together we can become perfect. We can cover each other's short sightedness and shortcomings. And I
Yeah.
think that's another reason why I do a lot of abstract pattern, geometric pattern work. When I'm painting that, I'm thinking, all these pieces fit together because I
Mm.
believe that on a bigger level, each one of us is a piece that's differently shaped. But when we come together, it's a really strong quilt.
Beautiful. And you know what? As I've looked at your paintings, they do look like quilts.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It's a style that, is constantly emerging and merging and changing. But yeah, I might have to do some quilting this year and just see where that takes me. My mom did some quilts when I was a kid, and I've always just been fascinated by the way things fit together.
Yeah, that's really sweet. I met this artist. If I can find his name, I will email it to you because you may be destined to meet each other. He would take old clothing that was going to be thrown out, and he would sort of weave it together. It's hard to explain, so that people could use the strips of fabric to crochet.
Hmm.
And then he had this ginormous blanket, and he had to, because it's so large and the fabric is so large, he had to custom make crochet needles.
Oh, wow.
And crocheting is a little easier than knitting to learn. So and what happens when people sit around a quilt or a crochet is so up my alley, because my artistry is human connection and listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about your painting that seems to sort of play that edge of how do all the parts of us as humans, how do all the parts of the humans in the community, how do all the communities play in this quilt or in my painting?
Yeah.
And he was creating that by creating these conversations that were happening around the quilt.
That's cool.
So I'm just free associating here with you, Daren, really. I just, that's what came up. Really cool. I'm so excited to amplify your work, and you really do have a joyful spirit in spite of being rebellious and kind of angry right now with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
It sounds like you conserve some of your energy for yourself so that you're not like sent sideways by all this stuff, which is I'm glad for.
Yeah, it's important to do that. It's really easy to just leave NPR playing all day, but it will drive you crazy. It will. It really will.
I have learned that I need to take little time outs because I'm not an effective actor if I'm like freaking out all the time. I'm just become a jerk, frankly.
Yeah, same.
I have a hard time believing you're ever a jerk, but maybe.
I'm really smart, so sarcasm is like another third language for me. Art, and then speaking, and then sarcasm. But I'm teaching myself this year how to rest. I don't really ever slow down, and if you don't stop me, I will work 24 hours. I just said this to someone last night. I was laying down and I was like, I hate that we have to sleep, and I hate that we have to eat, and I hate that we have to use the bathroom. Like, what a waste of time. Like, I wish that I could just never do any of that.
Man on a mission.
Work all the time. And she was like, well, then you wouldn't really be human. And I was like, oh, yeah.
That's funny.
But I can. So I'm teaching myself how to rest, and bought myself a robe for the first time. And my rule is like, once the robe is on, you're not allowed to take it back off and go back to work.
Oh, that's just really great. That's a great habit loop tips. I hope for folks that are listening, that have a hard time resting. That's great. I love that. I might steal that, Daren.
Yeah. If I get the urge to put it on, it's like, oh, that's your body telling you it's time to stop working. And then I just tell myself, like, you're not allowed to paint in this because it's really nice. And you can't take it back off and put clothes back on. You have to sleep before you can, go back to work.
We're at the end of our time, and there's just such a sweet moment for you to connect with all the listeners that listen with Sidewalk Talk around the world. I really like to get out of the way and have you have a conversation with them and offer them either a wish or words of wisdom.
My wish or some wisdom. One thing that all the turmoil and the craziness of the last year and the beginning of this year has really helped me get through. Whenever I'm feeling helpless or hopeless or just unsure about the future that we have ahead of us, I think it really helps me to step outside of myself and look around in my community, in my immediate vicinity, in my social media following community, anywhere, and find someone else who I can help. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be, something outside of what I can do, but sometimes it's just talking to someone else about their life, just checking on a friend. But I have found that the most grounded I feel on this earth is when I'm reaching out to help someone else. And I think if each one of us just shared a little bit of what we had, there would be more than enough to go around. I'm Daren Todd, and I just appreciate getting a chance to talk with you today. Take care.
Thank you for being here and listening to this episode of the Sidewalk Talk podcast. If you like what you heard, tell your friends, tell your family, like and comment on the podcast publisher that you're listening from, and subscribe. This will help us get the word out about changing our culture to one of